Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. The revival of the demand for a separate state of Gorkhaland has put mainstream national parties in a fix, with their units in the Darjeeling Hills breaking ranks with their own leadership in West Bengal and backing calls by the hill parties. The Gorkha Janmukti Morcha spearheading the agitation against what it calls imposition of Bengali on people in the hills is now mobilizing support for a separate Gorkhaland. This has prompted Union Minister and BJP's Darjeeling MP SS Ahluwalia to ask the Union Home Ministry to appoint a committee of experts to look into the demand. The Congress and the left, who are opposed to the idea of carving out a state from West Bengal, are also finding it increasingly difficult to stand with the people of the hills, where sentiments are running high, especially on the issue of Gorkhaland. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze what led to the revival of the Gorkhaland demand and its possible solutions. Joining me on the program today are Professor Subrata Mukherjee, political analyst, Balmiki Prasad Singh, former governor of Sikkim, Gautam Lahiri, senior journalist, and H.P. Chetri, president, Jan Andolan Party. He'll join us on the phone line. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Professor, I'd like to begin with you. Of course, this issue of Gorkhaland is a long-standing issue. It has been going on for several decades now. But what led to this at this particular juncture?
Well, you see, the Bengalis are very touchy about the language. You know, in both sides of the border, Bengalis have given their life for the language. And Mamata, what tried to do, there was a lot of discussion earlier that even the people who are in Kolkata, they do not know Bengali, the Bengalis themselves. So there was some kind of a demand that you do something for it, which she did, and became very popular. It's one of the most popular moves of the Mamata Banerjee government. And later on also she clarified a clarification that it will not be imposed in the non-Bengali areas. But you see, the Gorkhaland people, the leadership, they are looking for an issue. So they have got one. And they taking language as a handle, they reasserted their identity politics, and in the context of that, their demand of a Gorkhaland. Now, if you really look to the history, the original Darjeeling was not a part of Bengal, and after independence, it was merged with Bengal, and there was a demand for that in the 80s. There was a protracted struggle for it, but they could not achieve the end. And again, you know, it was revived in the end of the 90s, and then in recent times, for the first time, I think the Kolkata administration made a dent in the local election, and one or two municipalities there are being controlled by Mamata. And also you look to the demography. You see, Gorkhaland demand is less than 2 million people. So the viability of the state is not there. There is a subnationalism playing, and also there is a larger perception that Gorkhas are not treated properly by the Bengalis, because for instance, even today they are called Nepalis, that they resent. So there are a lot of issues. Some of them are cultural, some of them geographic, and some of them are economic.
Right.
But the dilemma is that without Kolkata, Darjeeling is not viable.
Okay, fair enough. Let me go across to H.B. Chetri, President Jan Andolan Party, and let him respond to what you said. H.B. Chetri, do you want to respond to what the professor has just said?
Yeah. Tell me.
Go ahead, we can hear you. H.B. Chetri, if you can hear me, the professor has just said that, you know, the Gorkhaland protests have just emerged now because the Gorkhas were just looking for a reason to come out and protest in this particular manner, and Mamata has laid it all out on a platter for the Gorkhas, and that's why it has led to this.
Your voice is breaking. I hear your complete sentence. Could you repeat that again?
Okay. Let me just shorten it. Okay, the protests that are going on there, what has led to this? Why are you protesting? What are your demands?
Why protecting what?
Okay, I think there's some technical difficulty with the phone line there. Let's move on and then continue the debate. Mr. Singh, you know, The professor said that it is a language issue and everything that has happened there is because of what Mamta has done, and Mamta has said that, Bengali has to be made compulsory, and that's why the Gorkhas are protesting in that particular part of West Bengal. But would you say that it is just that, or is it more, or is there more to it than meets the eye?
In that part of India, in the whole of Northeast India, Darjeeling Hills was a part of Sikkim till it was taken away by the British, and it was administered from Calcutta. There the situation is that over the years, the Gurkhas, the Bhutias, the Lepchas, Tamangs, they all have a sense of neglect. The sense of neglect is because if you administer a hill unit, and that too earlier it was less than 1 million, now it is nearly 2 million, from Kolkata, with all many barriers of geography, of language, of understanding of the political ethos, things become difficult. But this place had certain intrinsic advantages. It had roughly about 80 to 90 tea garden estates. It also had the advantage of having some of the best schools of the Eastern India and residential schools. And people used to send their children, and the standard of education in these schools was quite high. Even now it is quite all right. The third was that it was a tourist place, and people used to look up to Darjeeling Hills. Because of mishandling of the aspirations of the people, and I think from the beginning of the 20th century, the Gorkhaland demand came up. Then it degenerated into extortion of money from contractors, even from officials, as it happened in other parts, Mizoram, Nagaland, and all those places. I was very hopeful because I saw from close quarters when this Gorkhaland territorial administration was set up. I thought the leadership would go for administration, would rebuild Darjeeling. Darjeeling was, say, in 75 when Sikkim merged with India, Gangtok and Darjeeling Hills city. Darjeeling Hills was many times superior. Today, Gangtok is many times superior. So one is going up, the other is going down. Unless in that part of the land you don't work for harmony consciously between forces of democracy, culture and administration, things will decline. And it was not a wise decision to go for announcing introduction of Bengali language in schools.
Right.
Of course, this has been decided, rightly so. But, as the professor said, it is an emotive issue, language.
Sure.
There is no need. And people are understanding Bengali, they are understanding Hindi, they are understanding English, because they have to run tourist business.
Sure. It's an emotive issue. It shouldn't have come to this, is what you're suggesting. But Gautam, Lahiri, the demands of the Gurkhas, the demand of a separate statehood, are those demands justified?
No, that's a different issue altogether. But presently, in the name of Gorkhaland statehood demand, the narrative of the story is completely different because, there is a background to it. Recently, Bharatiya Janata Party is trying to increase their influence over the state of Bengal. And definitely there are some dissatisfied people or people of the many other parties are gradually, slowly coming to the BJP fold. And also there is a little bit of, you can say, in Bengal first time it is happening a little bit of polarization too. So I think Mamta then took a decision that how to counter that. BJP's forward movement, shows he smartly has taken a policy decision that I would say smart, because in the plains, people are very sensitive about what Professor was saying, sensitive about the language, the Bengali language. You can say, one can say it's a Bengali chauvinism, that's a different altogether. But she could not understand that it may create a different impact in the hills.
Right.
And what is happening in the next month, the term of the Gorkha land, its name is Gorkhaland Council, Hill Council. The name has been given after the tripartite agreement. The name was changed to satisfy Bimal Gurung that Gorkhaland word should be there. Not only that, there is a clause mentioning whenever necessary, they can go into the details of the Gorkhaland statehood issue. Also, it is mentioned in the agreement, tripartite agreement, where Government of India is also a party to it. Now, Bimal Gurung recently is facing a very difficult time in his own party. Many people, whom you have shown just now, Harka Bahadur Chetri, he broke away from Bimal Gurung. He floated his own party, like what Bimal Gurung floated his own party, breaking away from GNLF, Gorkha National Liberation. So this is one demand where all the Gorkhas can be united.
United, yes.
And the next month, there will be an election on the council. And in the recently held municipal election, what Professor has also mentioned, in the Meerut municipality, Trinamool got a majority. Now, first time a party of the plains, they got a majority in a hill state. And hill state, one of the municipality hill, and not only that, in other areas like Darjeeling, Karshiang and Kalimpong, where Trinamool Congress vote percentage has increased quite significantly. So it becomes a threat to Bimal Gurung that whether Trinamool Congress, a party of the plains, can capture the hills one day.
You know, that's a very interesting point that you're making. I want to take the point that you're making to H.B. Chetri and see what he has to say about that. H.B. Chetri, I don't know if you could hear what Gautam Lahiri was actually saying, but let me just sum it up for you. You know, you're fighting for political, survival there in the region, and that's why these protests are taking place, because Mamta has made a mark in the region, and that's something that is going to be, dangerous for you down the line, and that's why these protests have erupted.
I partly agree with you that Trinamool has made a mark after capturing Meerut municipality, but the state government seems to be in a haste, in the process of making people dream for development, which the state government says that it's only capable of bringing in development, and whatever GT was given, Bimal Gurung and the team failed to deliver to people. As a result of which there was a lot of resentment, because of which there was erosion in rank and file in his supporter also. That is true. But having said that, one should not miss the point that ultimately the aspiration of the people of the hills is for a separate state. And nobody can deny that, because time and again, under different system, we have felt that we are a victim of the politics of discrimination in so many ways. And as a result of which, when somebody raises the demand of a separate state of Gorkhaland, people tend to forget their political and other ideological differences, And Bimal Gurung, in a way, was looking for something to hang on, and the state government just handed it over to him in a platter. That's what I feel.
Okay, fair enough. Let's take the discussion forward now. Professor, what are the aspirations really of the Gorkhas, and how can these aspirations be met?
You see, as it happens in most of the cases, the proper thing they should settle for is a good power sharing arrangement. Gorkhaland is not viable. As I told you, it's 2 million, except tourism, not much of resources, because mind you that the tea gardens that you talk about, it is giving diminishing return, both in India and other areas. There are so many competitors now. So the tea industry itself is in a crisis in India, and much more it's in Darjeeling. Many of the tea gardens are closed, and there is a severe crisis of what to do with them. So I think what is happening now in this movement is that you really put a set of demands, you have to settle somewhere. And what happens is,
and where is that middle path going to be?
Middle path will be, you see, I think it is a problematic demand for the Gorkha leadership, because there will be no national party which can openly support it. Because you know, the BJP's name was also taken, but the point is that beyond a point that you cannot really encourage a sub-nationalistic feeling beyond a point. So ultimately, I think they will have to settle for it. Election will come, and there will be some kind of a unity of them to contest the election. But then we should also remember that the leadership of the Gorkhas is totally fragmented. And in this kind of a
but it seems like
movement,
in this particular issue, they seem to be united.
well, united is as long as the momentum continues. But the momentum cannot continue very long because tourism suffers. And the moment you are hurt in economics, then it's very difficult to contain, you know, or rather sustain agitational politics.
Sure.
So they will have to come to terms somewhere. And if you really look to the political fallout, I think Mamata knew very well that this will be the reaction. But she is also planning for the next election. And the way the things are going, it will be 41-1.
Okay.
So either way, Mamata is in a win-win situation.
Mr. Singh, I'm just going to come to you in a bit, but before that, Gautam, Lahiri, you know, do you think that it's not about language, it's not about culture, but really it is about politics?
It is surely and mainly politics, because Bimal Gurung wants to regain his foothold in the hill region. So when Mamata made a move, so he tried to give a counter move by raising the old slogan. If they are not at all satisfied with the present system of governance, what is the model they have accepted at Delhi when the meeting was held? There was a formally an agreement was passed, it was approved in the assembly. So if they have any grievances about this agreement are not being fulfilled, they could have raised this issue with the both government of India and to the state government. They are not raising those demands that look, these were the clauses where state government is bound to give us, but they are not giving to us. So, but now straight away ignoring all these agreed text where they have already achieved, they are going beyond that agreed text and again started a movement on Gorkhaland, which is, I think, both the national parties, both Congress and BJP, they always sided with the Gorkha parties, but they know very well that it is very difficult
to give
a statehood to a particular area which is strategically very important for India's security. And Mr. Singh, not only a governor, he was a former Home Secretary, he had dealt with this issue. He knows it very well when the draft was prepared.
I'm going to come to you, Mr. Singh, but before that, you know, talking about these national parties, of course, you know, just to give it a twist, there are several TMC cadres who are suggesting that this is all the BJP is doing, what's happening in Darjeeling and in the hills, because they want to divert the attention from what's happening in the heartland, in the farmer heartland of the country.
Yeah, that is true. That is true because once when CPM was in power, they used to say BJP is trying to divide the state, Congress is trying to divide the state, Rajiv Gandhi hobnobbing with the Gorkha leader Subhash Singh, and they made a MP from there, one independent MP supported by Gorkha when Congress was in power. So even undivided Communist Party supported the statehood demand. When the Communist Party was divided later on, when the CPM came into power, they realized the ground reality and they also abandoned that demand. So the initially undivided Communist Party and Congress, BJP, all three were giving some kind of a fillip to this demand.
Sure. Sure. Yes, Mr. Singh. Now, let me just ask you a question and then you can add whatever you have to say as well. You know, several efforts have been made in the past, you know, to try and come up with these autonomous institutions, you know, for self-rule and all of that, but none of that seems to have worked. Why is it?
You see, the heart is not there. The heart is in statehood. The cadre of those demanding autonomous institutions, they want to become chief ministers. They want to become ministers and all the perquisites that go with and recognition that go with that office. Now here I must tell you that politicians all over in India, they take decisions like this when elections come. In this forum itself, we have discussed how in the 15th year of his rule, the former Chief Minister of Manipur decided to reorganize the districts. And that led to all kinds of problems, including dharnas, traffic blockade and all that. Now here, in order to please the TMC cadre, a decision has been taken because language is very emotive, as has already been mentioned. Now, the counter is, on this issue, I raise my demand and unite my people. So this happens. So my feeling is that this kind of unruly classroom scenario, which will harm the interests of the people. It was mentioned tea gardens are in a bad situation. They need to be, relooked. How to make them profitable, or how to make that area, different if tea gardens are to be uprooted. Similarly, tourism, infrastructure building up. These are the issues of the people. But emotions are there. So you use emotion, don't do on substantive things. Roads, offices must function properly, hospitals, schools. Phenomenal expansion of schools is possible there. And employment can be generated. If 20 schools are set up, nobody is demanding that.
Right.
Set up new 20 schools in Darjeeling Hills. Request the missionaries, request the Ramakrishna Mission and other educational bodies to go and set up schools. Give them the facilities and see the transformation. So these are the real concerns of the people. But so you go into another direction. I want a statehood. XYZ wants language. No, this is unproductive.
Sure.
This keeps India down. This keeps Gorkhaland down. By creating a state, you don't solve your problem.
That's a very valid point that you're making. Remains to be seen what really happens on that front. But let me go across to HP Chetri, who's still with us on the phone line. What are the demands really as far as the Gorkhas are concerned, and are they willing to, take a middle path somewhere?
You see, what would be the middle path? Because on one hand, whenever there is agitation, and then agitating party are called both by the state and the center, they enter into some kind of agreement. The agreement is not followed to letter and spirit. Look at DGSC. The same thing happened with GTA also. So many things were promised, but not even 10% of what was promised was given. And whenever any constitutional demand is raised, that which is already there in the agreement, they sort of deem the agreement signed by themselves. And then when people disillusion, after all that, again take to the street, then it becomes law and order problem. Right now what's happening is the state government, look at the way in which Vimal Gurung's office was ransacked. He is an elected, and in any case, he doesn't belong to my party. I had difference, so I separated from him. That doesn't mean, his constitutional position as a cabinet rank minister, his office should not have been broken the way they broke it. The police broke it today. And what was recovered from there? They were showing firecrackers and some arrows and bows, and that becomes kind of almost as if it's an anti-national and a terrorist move. The way it's overblown by media, that alienates the people, the common man, all the more, irrespective across the party line, he will feel that after all, it's the community about which they are telling. It's the picture that they are portraying.
I'm going to take the point that you're making forward to my guests here as well. Thank you for joining us on the phone line and sharing your views on the program today. Professor, promises are made, empty promises are made, so there is no real middle path. So give us all or nothing.
No, there is a beauty of compromise, and that is inevitable. This is Mahatma's sentence. The point is, you see that in the hills, the options are very few. Now, if you really look to Siliguri, that the gateway to northeast is so sensitive and important an area that it has evolved a composite culture of its own.
Right.
And that should have been developed further. I give you an example. North Bengal University is one where the medium of instruction is English, because it's one-third, one-third, one-third. One-third Gorkhas, one-third Biharis, and one-third Bengalis. So it's not a Bengali town per se, and that's what India is. And we will have to reflect on it and develop on it. But again, we have to think very carefully because of the environmental reason. I'm not very sure you can open many schools or
Okay.
hospitals, any other, in Darjeeling.
Because I'm running out of time, I'm sorry to cut you short. I'll get my other panelists also with their concluding remarks. Mr. Singh, what next?
I get a very, very strong feeling that this will die down in the course of next 2-3 months. And good sense will prevail after elections to the Hill Council to manage the affairs and go for development.
Okay. Gautam, Lahiri, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
As Government of India is a party to this tripartite agreement, so Government of India has to play a role. They can convene a meeting, all the aggrieved parties, they can seek what is the present ground reality and try to find out a solution. So talk to them first.
Okay, fair. Fair enough. On that note, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Subrata Mukherjee, Balmiki Prasad Singh, Gautam Lahiri and HP Chetri, thank you so much for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's all the time we have today. See you again next time.